Picture dawn breaking over Dalb, Texas, December 10, 1928. Frost clings to cotton stalks, cattle breathe steam, and within the county's lone maternity shack, nurse Clara Boyd mutters a prayer because Mary Blocker's labor has stretched through 2 full meals and a gossip session on the porch. At 6:17 a.m., the room tilts as a 14-pound, 3-ounce baby thunders into history like a bass drum dropped down a church stairwell. The physician's spectacles fog. He jots Bobby Dawn instead of Bobby Dan, a hiccup of ink that will haunt bureaucrats for years. Neighbors swear they hear the wail half a mile away over the windmill blades. A headline the next day in the Bowie County Banner reads, "Biggest baby yet, mother doing well, bed not so much." Townsfolk save that clipping the way others tuck away 4-leaf clovers. They'll need it because nothing about this boy will shrink to fit their expectations. By kindergarten, he drags burlap feed sacks bigger than his classmates' hopes, husking corn with hands like kettle lids. Yet when pneumonia snatches 11-year-old sister Virginia, the mighty house falls silent. Dan, 5 years old, all knobby knees and grief he can't name, learns a brute fact: size can't shoulder sorrow. Shack Blocker sells the farm, opens a grocery in O'Donnell, population 3,126, and melting. They live in a back room fragrant with apples and kerosene, where Dan bags beans for nickels and memorizes produce weights the way other children recite baseball stats. One Friday night, the town ropes off Main Street so he and older boys can slug it out beneath bare bulbs. Dan apologizing each time someone hits the dust, then helping them up. Over time, the phrase "struck by Blocker" becomes shorthand for any toppled fence post or split rafters. A church bell he rings at Easter cracks clean through. The congregation auctions shards as keepsakes, a miracle woven from miscalculation. Texas Military Institute sharpens his posture at 11. Teachers note that beneath the brawn lurks a reader. He devours Macbeth by flashlight, underlining, "Yet I am afraid to think what I have done." Those words will echo in Korean trenches soon enough. He graduates tall as a doorway, gentler than a lullaby, marching south toward destiny with both grace and combustible potential. Dalb's record-breaking delivery becomes local legend. At county fairs, elderly midwives recount how Mary Blocker needed 3 men to lift newborn Dan onto the linen scale. The miswritten birth certificate triggers 7 court affidavits over 18 years. Each filing costs Shack 2 days' profit, but cements a pattern. Bureaucracy bends around the boy like rail ties around a tree. After Virginia's death, O'Donnell tries to stitch the Blockers into its social quilt. Dan's first job hauls 50-pound flour sacks onto Model A pickups, shoulders straining, voice still cracking. By age 10, he's 5 feet tall, bench pressing homemade barbells welded from axle parts. Farmers test him. Can he hoist a tractor wheel? Yes. Toss a hay bale onto the loft? Yes. A traveling salesman bets $5 Dan can't pick up the salesman's Model T front bumper. Dan lifts, salesman yelps, bumper dents, bet paid. Saturday nights become town sport. The main drag is cordoned with rope. Headlights form a rough square ring where teenagers spar for bragging rights. Dan, bare-knuckled, always opens with, "Sorry about this," before gentle jabs that nonetheless fold bigger opponents. Folks swear he once lifted a Ford off a hand-pinned mechanic. Story grows with each retelling until the car is a grain truck and Dan a folk hero. Yet none of that shields him from loneliness. Class photos show him drowned in the back row, shoulders eclipsing the blackboard. He escapes into dime store westerns and National Geographic maps, tracing shipping lanes to Korean ports he cannot pronounce. When Texas Military Institute accepts him, he lugs a trunk stuffed with books, not boxing gloves. By 12, he's 6 feet, 200 pounds, reciting Caesar's war commentaries during push-ups. The cadet commander predicts he'll captain the football squad. Dan quietly applies to the drama club, intrigued by how words can wound or heal without fists. Hardin-Simmons University in Abilene offers a partial football scholarship in 1946. Coaches drool. At 18, Dan already dwarfs their offensive line. But one night, he strays into the campus theater where arsenic and old lace rehearses. The director, needing a strong man to carry faux corpses, conscripts him. Under dusty Fresnels, Dan discovers adrenaline of a quieter kind. Laughter rippling across rows, timing hinging on a single blink. A seed roots. Then global politics interject. June 1950. North Korea storms south, and the draft board plucks Dan mid-semester. Fort Polk's quartermaster requisitions custom boots from a Louisiana cobbler. The standard issue stops at size 12. Dan's feet scream 14 and a half. In Korea, his unit, F Company, 179th Infantry, 45th Division, dubs him the Big Un. Letters home describe snow stinging like ground glass. See rations freezing solid before the lid unlatches. Christmas Eve 1951, Hill 255. Chinese artillery pounds trenches until night itself seems to splinter. Dan drags 2 bleeding privates to a foxhole, stuffing snow into wounds when morphine runs out. For 10 hours, he recites Shakespeare sonnets to keep them conscious, turning war's absurdity into accidental theater. May 25, 1952, Hill 200. Firefight leaves 6 Americans dead. Dan, now Master Sergeant, orchestrates a counterflank that saves 21 more. A bullet grazes his ribs during a stretcher run. Still, he carries another man. Purple Heart, awarded. Nightmares guaranteed. Homecoming, December 1952, feels surreal. New Mexico sunshine too warm, crowds too cheerful. Within 48 hours, he marries college sweetheart Dolly in an adobe chapel scented with sage. Vows are rushed. The minister wonders why the groom keeps scanning doorways as if expecting mortar fire. Dan burns his uniform 3 nights later, telling Dolly, "That chapter's read, I'm writing the next." He re-enrolls at Sul Ross State to finish a drama degree, declining semi-pro football contracts and a boxing promoter's $10,000 offer. Fists feed the ego, he reasons, but stories feed the soul. To pay tuition, he wrangles rodeo bulls on weekends, humming TMI marching hymns while cinching ropes. When a bronc buckles him to the dirt in Alpine, he quotes Hamlet. Crowd roars, promoter hires him as ring announcer. Acting, athletics, education swirl, yet he keeps every diary entry with one refrain: "I will not live by my shoulders alone." 1956. Dan packs a battered station wagon for Los Angeles. UCLA's School of Education offers a path to a PhD in curriculum design. The plan is tidy. Earn doctorate, revolutionize rural schooling, retire a quiet professor, reality detours at a Glendale phone booth. Clad in straw cowboy hat and turquoise snap shirt, en route to ask about tuition deferrals, he phones Dolly. Talent agent Kermit Bloomgarden hears baritone laughter through the glass, wheels his Buick around, and slides a business card under the booth door. "TV needs you, Palomino." First gigs are humble. Sheriff of Cochise bartender, Gunsmoke cavalry lieutenant, Three Stooges alien goon in foam rubber suit, credited as Don Blocker because busy producers misread his resume. Between takes, Dan marks 5th grade essays from substitute shifts. Film crew kids line up for grammar tips between dolly shots. Casting directors note the juxtaposition, prehistoric physique, ivy smooth diction. David Dortort notices more. Developing a sweeping color, Western about the Cartwrights of the Ponderosa, he sketches a gentle middle brother named Hoss, 8-inch letters across the page. Cast, Blocker, no audition. NBC execs squawk that viewers won't buy a 300-pound intellectual. Dortort counters, they'll buy authentic. When Dan hesitates, torn between dissertation chapters, Dolly points to their newborn twins and says, "A classroom seats 30. A TV screen seats 30 million. He signs. So begins a gamble that will rewrite both their bank ledgers and bedtime schedules. Dan still attends UCLA seminars at dawn, scribbling research on literacy intervention, but studios soon tighten grip. He's told to drop 20 pounds. He adds 10. Told to skip night classes. He sneaks to them anyway. Within a year, deadlines collide. Cameras at 7 a.m. Faculty office hours at 9 a.m. Fight rehearsal at noon. By 1961, he files university leave papers, heartbeat heavy. Education will wait, he lies to himself. Bonanza's 1959 premiere sputters at 45th in ratings. NBC panics until color TV sets bloom in Sears windows, and Sunday night living rooms are painted Ponderosa green. By season 3, the show climbs to number 2. By season 5, it owns the throne. Fan mail saturates studio basements. Postal clerks nickname them hospital sorting centers. Wardrobe burns through 64 Stetsons. Horses chew a few. Sweat erases others. Across 34 episodes a year, production thrums like a sawmill. Wake up 5:30 a.m. horseback sunup, dialogue pages thick as hymnals, Nevada summers broil 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Dan's NASA fabric undershirt, experimental moisture wick weave, proves innovatory yet still soaks through by noon. Twice he collapses mid-take, revived by on-site medics and iced towels. Each time he apologizes before cameras roll again. Stunt coordinator notes that Dan reshoots punches to make them appear slower. He fears younger extras will underestimate his force. Writer John T. Dugan confesses, "We wrote Hoss simple till Blocker played him smart. Then we rewrote the show around his kindness." Scripts pivot from slapstick to morality plays. Hoss teaches blind children to ride, rescues Paiute infants, befriends killers seeking redemption. Viewers write NBC that Hoss taught them how a real man cries. Advertisers drool. Chevrolet signs Dan for pickup truck commercials. He negotiates a clause donating one truck annually to a rural school district. In 1963, he opens Bonanza Sirloin Pit No. 1 inside a defunct Greyhound station in Westport, Connecticut. Wood beams, wagon wheel chandeliers, charcoal pits big enough to roast a steer. Lines snake 3 blocks, tickets sold like ball games. Investors envision frozen dinners. Dan vetoes. Family meals shouldn't revolve in microwaves. Financial advisors scream lost millions. He shrugs. Integrity budgets its own profit. Meanwhile, home life frays. Tape recorders under pillows let his kids fall asleep to Daddy reading Treasure Island because he can't be there. Dolly manages 4 children and a husband who ingests antacid tablets like popcorn. Exhaustion leaches color from his cheeks. Still, he arrives at schools unannounced to guest lecture on Shakespeare's soliloquies, leaving principals starstruck. Imagine Disneyland, summer 1965. The Blocker clan steps onto Main Street, USA. Within minutes, tourists swarm, chanting Hoss. Park security funnels them into subterranean corridors, usually reserved for Cinderella escape routes. Dirk, 8, clutches cotton candy, heart pounding. He decides right there that fame feels less like magic and more like sirens. The family tries camouflage. Dan in floppy fisherman hat, Dolly with kerchief and sunglasses, but his bass voice detonates cover. At diners, crowds queue for signatures. Managers comp meals they never taste warm. Dirk starts karate classes under an affable instructor named Chuck Norris, who hasn't yet roundhoused a screen villain, but teaches Blocker kids discipline against invisible opponents. Anxiety, expectation, loss. Home isn't sanctuary either. Paparazzi perch in sycamores near the Glendale house. Neighborhood kids barter glimpses through slats. When David, age 10, breaks an arm skateboarding, tabloids run headlines, Hoss's boy hospitalized. At school, bullies taunt, bet your daddy can punch through lockers. David retorts, bet he can spell better too, echoing Dan's grammar lessons. Yet Dan refuses to lock the gates. Halloween, he hands out full-size Snickers while wearing a gorilla suit. No one believes the costume fits. Christmas, he invites grips, gaffers, and extras with nowhere to go, cooking brisket until 3 a.m. Dirk recalls waking at dawn to find stuntmen snoring on couches, Hoss cartoons flickering silently on TV, and always the guilt. Each father-son fishing plan postponed, each PTA meeting missed, stacked like IOUs. Dirk internalizes 2 truths. Adoration can suffocate, and kindness can survive spotlight glare. He chooses a career built on character roles, the side roads of Hollywood, hoping shadows offer clearer skies. Gallstones jab Dan's ribs during season 13 location shoots. Studio medics recommend immediate cholecystectomy. He declined, citing Sweeps Week arcs and Dirk's spring recital. February 1972, he consults a Beverly Hills surgeon who warns embolism risk. Dan marks surgery after season wrap May 12th. At Daniel Freeman Memorial, his vitals steady post-op. Nurses chart jokes he cracks about hospital gowns. 3:54 a.m. Alarms blare. Oxygen levels dive. A clot likely from leg veins lodges in pulmonary artery. Crash cart charges. Adrenaline syringes punch skin, but at 4:10 cardiac monitor flatlines. Staff weeps. Surgeon later writes, "The room felt suddenly too small for the spirit leaving it." News bulletins interrupt morning radio. By noon, NBC cancels scheduled reruns, airs tribute montage instead. Castmates gather at Lorne Green's house in shock. Michael Landon sobs uncontrollably. He later recalls, "When Dan died, the set lost its gravity." Viewership surges for first episode of season 14, curiosity morbid, but then collapses 40%. Executives blame Tuesday time slot, fans know better, carve out the show's heart, and arteries collapse. Robert Altman, having cast Dan as Roger Wade in The Long Goodbye, debates abandoning the film. He instead retools scenes around Sterling Hayden, leaves dedication for Dan Blocker, larger than life, louder than engines. A line echoing across theater darkness like a farewell trumpet. Doctors who later pioneer laparoscopic gallbladder surgery cite Blocker's case in grand rounds. Had we possessed fiber optic scopes, one laments, I suspect Sergeant Blocker would have lived to see them. Dirk, 14, processes grief by chopping cords on a battered Gibson his dad had given him months earlier. Strings bite fingers. Pain feels productive compared to emptiness. 2 years after the funeral, Dirk lands a walk-on role in Marcus Welby, MD, scripted ironically around a teen with unresolved grief. He nails the audition by breathing once, staring past the camera. Producer scribbles haunted eyes like his father. Still, Dirk swerves from star trajectory. Community theater, small-town marinas, backstage carpentry, voiceovers for nature docs. He cultivates anonymity like bonsai, trimmed, deliberate. 1980s cult hits, Poltergeist, Starman, MASH guest shot, accrue IMDb credits without tabloid glare. Colleagues describe him as steadfast, precise, impossible to ruffle. Between gigs, he teaches acting workshops to veterans with PTSD, merging personal history with craft. He marries Danielle Aubuchon, tours Civil War battlefields on vacations because he jokes, "Our family collects ghosts." 2013, Brooklyn Nine-Nine showrunner Dan Goor needs an older detective whose laziness feels heroic. Dirk, 56, audition tape shows him silently peeling a hard-boiled egg for 20 seconds before uttering, "Crime solves itself if you nap long enough." Casting unanimous. Over 8 seasons, he molds Hitchcock into meme gold. Cheap Chinese food stains, desk naps, conspiratorial side-eye, yet crew notes glimpses of Blocker gravitas when scripts hint at loyalty beneath slob veneer. Podcast boom of 2024 finally coaxes Dirk to long-form honesty. 3-hour episode titled Giant Steps, Trends #1. He recounts gallbladder warnings, NBC's schedule pressure, his own teenage guilt. "I wish I'd told Dad surgery mattered more than opening night." Listeners flood socials with listen to your body hashtags. Medical nonprofits cite downloads as evidence storytelling saves lives. Dirk launches Blocker Fellowship, grants for children of frontline workers and entertainment staff lost to occupational hazards, stunt drivers, war correspondents, paramedics. Opening gala at Paramount yields $2 million. Dirk reads from his father's diary entry, "Big hearts beat longer than big fists unless they forget to rest." Applause lasts a minute. Donations triple. Streamers scramble for Bonanza 4K restorations. One pitch suggests AI voice clones. Dirk refuses, echoing his father's integrity. Instead, he agrees to a docuseries exploring the unseen cost of classic television production, sunstroke, marital strain, lost PhDs. Working title, Behind the Ponderosa. He hosts, narrates, and kneels before the cracked church bell shard in O'Donnell during finale, laying camellias. Drive Highway 87 into O'Donnell at golden hour. Mesquite silhouettes paint lacework across asphalt. A barn's flank erupts with a mural. Dan Blocker smiling beneath turquoise sky. Hoss hat perched like a halo. Pull over. Wind hums through prairie grass. Cross Railroad Street to the Heritage Museum. A 2-story brick bank miraculously unchanged since 1925. Doors wide to travelers. Inside, artifacts celebrate contradictions. A 6XL cadet uniform beside a dog-eared collected Shakespeare, size 14.5 combat boots, under a photo of Dan kneeling to tie a child's shoelaces on set. A broken church bell fragment rests in velvet. Feel its surface. Imagine the thunderous ring that shattered it. A Super 8 reel loops silent footage. Dan, at 13, tipping a grain truck upright. At 33, teaching daughter Dana a waltz between camera rehearsals. At 42, high-fiving hospital orderlies after visiting children with leukemia. Every July 4th, the town parade halts at his bronze bust. Veterans in starched blues salute. Rodeo queens lay sunflowers. A gospel choir raises voices. Dirk sometimes slips among spectators unnoticed. Ball cap low. He brings a notebook page stuffed in his father's wallet the day he died. Even giants feel rain. Be an umbrella. Tears blur ink. He smiles anyway, because vulnerability is the final frontier courage must conquer. Legends often challenge us with impossible feats. Slay dragons, lift cars, break viewership records. Dan Blocker's legacy challenges something subtler yet heavier. Stay kind, underweight. Carry the coffin of ego. Set it down, carry someone else's groceries instead. He showed that a bayonet and a book of sonnets fit the same rucksack, that a man can punch through bar doors on Tuesday and volunteer at literacy drives Wednesday. Above all, he proved that postponing self-care, bodily or emotional, taxes everyone who loves you. So next time you eye the calendar and think, I'll schedule that checkup later, remember a gentle giant who postponed once too often. Next time cynicism shrugs at decency, imagine Hoss Cartwright's slow grin and ask, what would kindness do? And when screens flood with pixel-resurrected idols, choose instead to miss them, to let memory breathe rather than computer vents whir. Absence, after all, carves room for gratitude. We pass this way just once. Dan Blocker filled his single pass with laughter echoing off buttes, with children's bedtime voices recorded on reel-to-reel, with footsteps that flatten mud into avenue. The bell he cracked tolls softer now, but every note reminds the plains, and all of us, how far a giant's kindness can carry.